All right, welcome back to Grace in Your Corner. I am honored to have my older sister here, Jodi Green. Jodi's with me. We are in San Diego, and we're going to talk a little bit about rhythms today. So, Jodi, why don't you start us off?
Yes, I have had to learn this lesson the hard way. One of the quotes that I love that helps me talk about this and really drives this discussion for me is from Mark Batterson. And he says, you take a change of pace plus a change of place, and that equals a change in perspective. And sometimes that's what I need to really get a grasp on what's going on in my life. So daily, I like to have rhythms of just having some time alone. Monthly, I take a day of solitude to do that, and then annually try to get away and have some vacation time.
What do you think out of the three things, the pace and place, what do you think is the hardest one for you to manage in your life?
Oh, well, with young kids right now, getting away takes a lot of work. Sometimes worth it doesn't feel worth it. So the place part can feel hard. But more so than that, I think, because I can get to a new space, because you could come to San Diego and your mind could not shut down. You could still try to be connected to what's going on back home. I could still be checking in and thinking about, my head could still be in a different pace. Mm-hmm. And so I think maybe moving ourselves is easier than actually dealing with what's going on in the pace that's happening in our heads and in our hearts, for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So when I was in the midst of being a principal, often I could still go home and I was changing the location, but if I wasn't disconnecting from my phone, my computer, my email, that pace was still, ramping up, and it wasn't helping me escape at all. That's good. So I mentioned we are in San Diego, which is awesome. First time for me to be in San Diego.
Second time for me.
Second time for Jodi. We had the honor of going to the USS Midway for about 7 hours yesterday.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, my dad knows every inch and crevice of the USS Midway, and I know more than I ever wanted to know. But
that's true.
Anyway, I want to talk about just the importance of, because Jodi lives in Colorado, I live in Kansas City, and I think it's fair to say that you and I have had this talk, that it's hard to stay connected, you and I, at times, even if it's cell phone texting, FaceTime. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. If all the technology we have, we can feel like we're trying to stay connected to everyone and actually not stay connected to anyone. That's how it can feel sometimes. And for me, I have to choose every day between, am I going to be connected to my family when I'm home, or am I going to be on a device? I have to, if I'm going to ever monitor a teenager screen time, I got to start here. Am I right? Yes.
Yeah. Airplane coming over, just so you know. We are close to the airport. No, but I mean, the technology is there. It doesn't matter, though. We could have a time warp machine, and I could just go through, like Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty, and show up in Fort Collins. But until you make the time, until you need it to be an effort, it doesn't really matter. And that's one thing that her and I have talked about, really getting to know each other better and making that effort. And part of that is family vacation. So my first question for you about this trip is, talk to me what it's like to have a vacation without kids.
Oh, a dream. It's a dream. Can I get an amen from the parents? Okay. The reason it's great to not have kids is not because we don't love our kids, and I can't wait to spend time with Brody and Bennett when we go later this summer, is because you get to finish conversations.
Yeah.
You have uninterrupted, just even games, even playing, even things, going on a drive this afternoon. We drove up and down Pacific Highway. You cannot do that kind of stuff with children. They need to be a little bit more entertained. And so being able to take a nap, sit on the deck, smoke a cigar with my dad, those things that just help you slow your pace down are really hard when you have kids. Kids make the world super fun, but they also are very distracting.
I would agree with 100% of what Jodi just said. It is nice to not be on a timeline, to be able to just get away with adults and have meaningful conversation without having to look around over your shoulder at all times. So let's talk a little bit more about just taking care of yourself and self-care. This is one thing that you had said, is taking time in a different location. What are some things that you do to take care of yourself and keep yourself mentally healthy?
Oh gosh, because I have small children, we have to get creative. So my husband Jeremy and I have renamed our back room the Cozy Traveler. And so we will say, hey, let's go on a date to the Cozy Traveler, which just means we grab something great to eat, we put on some great music, and we just sit in our back room, because our kids are asleep upstairs, without the TV on, and we just have meaningful conversation and pretend like it's a date night. So we do that regularly, just the two of us. For me personally, I have this sheepskin rug in the corner of my room. I call it the cloud because it's got memory foam on the bottom. It's magical. And I try to spend time on it every day. Sometimes that means getting up really early to get up before my 20-month-old, but I found that it's worth it and matters a ton for me to just have a little bit of space and time.
Airplane alert.
Yes. Because that kind of stuff is happening. And so it's become a rhythm and a habit that I fight for to just start the day centered and mindful of how I'm going into the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to lose sight of yourself when you are a working wife, you're a daughter, and you have to be a parent of two. So Jodi has two amazing young boys. We've talked a little bit about just the difficulty of parenting in my website, and it is tough. I want you to focus on what was it like the change from one kid to two kids?
Well, that's twice as many kids. So we had twice as many kids.
That's good math. Hold on, that's it. That's a wrap. Twice as many kids.
Oh, that's it. Honestly, though, I would say the change was harder for Jeremy than it was for me, because when you're a mom, your entire world changes almost the moment you get pregnant. Your body is taken you're taken hostage by your own body. And so for that whole time, you are learning what it's like to not be your own anymore. And then if you have the gift of being able to nurse, or if you can't, and just like you're always thinking about what time is it? I got my life is 3-hour chunks for so long. And then your baby needs you so much more. I think with the second kid, Jeremy, when I then had the baby, he had the first kid all the time. And so for him, it was a big change because I was immediately always having to be with our first kid, and he didn't have to do that. And then with the second kid, you take the kid, I'll go to this. It's which kid do you want? And then as you get more and more kids, I just hear it gets more and more like that. I'll take the bigs, you take the littles. Let's go do that. So I think it's been even more important for us to have time in the Cozy Traveler. We do a date night swap with some of our friends because babysitting, can we talk about that? Cha-ching.
Yeah, no kidding.
What? Okay, I'm going into debt just to stay alive. But we have friends, and so every Wednesday night, we bring our kids to their house. We go have a dinner. The next Wednesday night, we switch, so it's free daycare in that way. And it's 5:30 to 7:30. We eat with all the retired people in Fort Collins, which is a great time, less waiting. But that's something we've been doing for the last 3 years, that sometimes you come home and you're just exhausted. And you're like, you know what I don't want to do? Leave this house again.
Yeah.
But we have a group chat, and we actually named the group chat with these 4 parents called Healthy Marriages. And we're like, no, we're going to go, because a 1-2-hour conversation every 2 weeks, uninterrupted, is more than some people get. And we're going to fight for that.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on a rant right now just about babysitting. So you're going to pay someone $40 to watch 2 kids while you go out and have a $50 meal, plus everything else that goes on with that.
And half the time, those kids are sleeping, okay? Half the time, I'm paying you to watch my Hulu, okay? Okay.
No, but the people that watch my kids, I really love that they do a great job.
Me too. I do love it, and I want to support that, but it's expensive.
Okay.
It's one of the ways kids are expensive.
I'm thinking about giving you the open floor to talk about whatever you want. I already warned my community that I was having my sister on here. I said, say a prayer for me. So there's 2 things I want you to do. The first thing is I want you to think about, Lauren and I had already talked about one of each of our biggest parenting fails.
Oh, gosh,
so I want you to tell us your
one?
biggest parenting fail, and then anything about life. I'll give you the floor for 1 minute at the end.
Okay, that's great. I don't know much, so 1 minute's plenty of time. I would say biggest parenting fail. There's so many. I would have to say my oldest son is 3.5 now. He was probably 16 or 18 months. He was toddling around, and we were at a barbecue for my work. And my work, it's very flexible. Being a full-time mom is being a full-time failure sometimes. It can feel like if you're working full-time as a mom, you feel like you're failing at work, you're failing at being a mom, you're failing at all the things. And I was bringing my son to a barbecue for a group of stuff we were doing for Young Life. And I'm trying to talk to these college students over here, and we're doing all this stuff. And Corbin was trying to toddle down to get to his hot dog, and he was leaning over to pick something up on the edge of the driveway, and he did I'm standing right there. I could have reached out and grabbed him, and I'm talking and not paying attention. I just watch in slow motion him fall and do a upside down face scrape all the way down the curb. And he starts screaming, and I grab him and pick him up, and the boy seriously has a scab from here all the way down his face down to here. It's just scraped red, raw, and bleeding. He's screaming. I'm like feeling like the worst mom ever. And so then for the next 4 weeks, it's what happened to your kid? Oh my gosh. I'm like, and he was standing right there. Sometimes I'm like, I can't, you can't watch him enough. And sometimes you turn away for a second and your kid's covered in cornstarch, which is a different story.
There's so many, and it makes you feel like a bad parent at the time, but it's important that we don't feel the guilt, the shame that comes along with that, because it didn't matter who was watching your kid at that time. That was going to happen. Exactly.
And that's what I'd probably say how I would end with, if I would say anyway, 1 minute about life that has been the most radically transforming for me is being kind to myself. The thought tapes that I can play in my mind can be so devastating. And when I started to learn what they were and identify them, and this phrase, observe myself, when I was taught by folks to observe myself, like pay attention to your thoughts, pay attention to what you're thinking, I started to realize I was thinking some really cruel things about myself that I would never say to someone else, that weren't true about me. And through professional counseling that I believe in and am currently in, and through having a great support community, through journaling, through spending that time in the morning on my cloud to just get a grasp on, this is what I'm afraid of, this is what I'm worried about today, and this is the stuff that I can use. And through my faith is a big part of how I offload those things. And just being kind, because man, we're all doing the best we can. I'm doing the best that I can. The person who cut me off in traffic, they're doing the best that they can. And what I've learned is, as I started to retrain my brain to be kind to myself, it's become easier to be kind to people around me as well. I think we're good at faking kindness towards other people, but I started to see it become a genuine, like, my first gut reaction isn't blame. It's, I bet there's a story there. Yeah. And I think that's what I love about what you're doing, Corey, with all of this, is you're starting to shine light on everyone has a story. Yep. Everyone has a story. Every person that you encounter, and everyone wants to tell their story, but they don't know how and they don't know where it's safe, and you're trying to create a space for that. And I just couldn't be more proud of that, and proud to be part of it.
Well, thank you, Jodi. And again, Grace in your corner, Jodi Green. I still call her Strothman at times. Jodi Green, my sister, who I love. She has a great insight on life. And as she had mentioned, we all have a story. So today, tomorrow, whenever, when you're out and you're about and you see someone, don't be quick to judge, be quick to deliver grace, and think about, what is that person's story, what are they going through, and most importantly, what can you do to brighten their day? All right, from San Diego, I am Ron Burgundy.